Why do we have to stay home for the next 2 months?
The reason is a simple math problem.
Tell
When
me
people
about it.
consider the coronavirus versus the normal flu, that seems to be like what people are talking about. The flu will kill you. 0.1% of people that will have the flu will die. That means that 1 out of 1,000 people will die from the normal flu. When it comes to coronavirus, you're talking about 2 to 3% out of 100, which is a much higher level. That is concerning. It's 30 times deadlier than a normal flu. Second, more concerning than that is that it's been shown that it transmits 3 times faster than a normal flu. That means that will contaminate 3 times more people than a normal flu. If you're talking about 365 million people population in the United States alone, and you're talking about that you only have 1 million beds in the United States in the hospitals, and at any given time, 600,000 of those beds are occupied, it only leaves you with 40% of beds available for people that need to go to a hospital.
Mm.
If we're talking about that eventually 60 to 70% of our population will catch this, that means that 20% out of those 60 to 70% will need a hospitalization.
Mm.
20% of 70% of 375 is a large number. We're
What
talking
is the
about,
number?
what is the number? 70, 140, 210, 250 million people will catch this disease. Out of those 250 million people, 20% the symptoms will be bad enough that will need a hospitalization. So if you have 250 and 20% of those needs to go to the hospital, you're talking about 75,
Million people?
yeah, that will need to go to the hospital. We only got beds for 1 out of those 7. So 1 bed out of 70 people that will need to eventually go to the hospital is available. 1 bed. That's why we're not trying to stop the virus. What we're trying to do is delay the curve of how many people get infected at one time, because if it happens all at one time, our medical system and our hospitals will be overwhelmed, which will mean that people go to hospital, won't have a bed, and they will die.
Mm.
If we're able to have a linear curve where we can probably delay the 60 to 70% of our population getting infected, then that means that hospitals will have that much more time to be able to take those people in and release them and recuperate and be able to have the ability to treat all these people, and not at one point. If it happens at one point, we're done. It is done. Millions of people worldwide will die. Millions. And when we're talking about millions, we're talking about 50 to 60 million people. That is a lot of people.
Wow.
Maybe 100,000. 100 million people will die. So why quarantine is necessary is because we have to slow this down. If we don't slow this down, it will overrun our health system, and we will not be able to deal with the consequences, which is going to be mass casualties.
Mm.
That's why this is a math problem. And when you see it in those ways, you understand the predicament and the hardship that we're dealing with.
So what about the checks the president is saying he's gonna send to the people? Do you think?
That is only necessary because we can work. Because we either have to pick one. We either have to pick, we go to work and we continue our life as usual, but be prepared to have millions and millions and millions of people dying in the United States. So when they bring up the fact that how many people died of the normal flu every year in the United States?
Thousands.
Thousands. We're not talking about the same number. We're talking about far off numbers of people will die. Millions and millions and millions of people will die in the United States alone. 5 million, 6 million alone, United States, if we're not able to control this. That's why what they're doing, it seems like an overreaction. But if it feels like an overreaction, it will definitely feel like we underreacted when we actually hit with it. Because right now, we're not living what's about to happen to us right now. We're in just the tip of the iceberg, and we're about to hit the depths of it, and we'll realize that we could have done so much more. But at what price do you do so much more?
What is the price?
Economic breakdown. Just completely economic breakdown, and it's basically what we're balancing now. Do you completely sustain your whole society by going in debt, or you just let it run out? And that's probably the worst thing that you could do, because you would lose 5 million people in your population, 3% of your population, 4%. In Italy, it's not 3%; it's 8% of people are dying. It is massive. It's not a 3% linear like can happen in China. It's different everywhere. So
Because they have older population.
because they have older population, because they're known to be heavy smokers, and the way this thing attacks you, it attacks people with are old, or attacks people that have prior conditions that are not beneficial to have. If this thing gets you, it's a pulmonary disease. So if you're already an asthmatic, if you're already a smoker, it's gonna hit you that much harder. It's gonna really wreck you, no matter what age you have. But if obviously elderly people are more susceptible. If you're diabetic, if you're fat, it's just going to make that much more harder for you to beat. Some people might not even feel like it's much worse than a flu, like a bad flu.
Yeah.
But it's not the same for everybody.
So do you think these checks are gonna help people?
Yes.
Do you think they're gonna sustain them?
Only so much.
Do you have something else to say?
No. Yes. I would say treat this seriously, but get calm. Think small, little problems, what you can control. Don't worry about what you can't control, but worry about what you can control. Yes.
And so, no workout.
Stay the fuck home.
Stay the fuck home. Thank you.